everybody, to another episode of Non-Fungible News. Today, we are interviewing Brad Skeg Trollburster from none other than BC. Before we get started, though, if you could hit the like, subscribe to the channel, and post your comments, what you think in the comments below, and that's it. We'll dive right in. So what's up? What's going on, Brad?
Not a whole lot. And you saying or introducing my name like that reminds me of all of us picking our names at the start of the Vekings launch. We need to find something to do with that.
That was a lot of fun. I remember that name table. I got Bjorn the Innocent.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, do something with that. That was a lot of fun. So a lot of this is going to be just kind of repeat questions from the spaces, because I know you're very involved in the Twitter spaces with Virtual Flame and everybody else. You don't ever hesitate to jump in there and answer questions and just help out the community. So
I try to be present.
It's much appreciated. But why don't we start? Give us a little background about you. Who's Brad?
Brad is my obviously my little moniker for online phone. Yeah, I'm a longtime VeChain holder ever since the Venn days. Me and my buddies have been sitting in the background like most VeChain investors, where we had our bag and we're kind of just watching the foundation do their thing, and seeing partnership after partnership roll out, but never really participating in the ecosystem. So just watched my bag happily, rode it down from the 2017 highs to the bear winter lows, and then started seeing it come back up again. And I know, before we went live here, you just mentioned the Vekings thing, and for some reason that was a little bit of an awakening for me and the team, where I had actually been doing some NFT stuff with on Ethereum. I got a couple projects that I'm pretty heavily invested in, but once I saw Vekings doing their thing, it made me take a step back and go, I never realized I've always had this bag of VeChain, and I've never done anything with it. This entire time, it's just been sitting there. And I went to my buddies and I said, VeChain is a fork of Ethereum. It has all the functionality and the capability to do this stuff. Why not? Why don't we bring some energy to the space? They're doing it. I think we could do it. Maybe even try to improve on some things. So we kind of put our heads down and said, okay, let's put a game plan together. And yeah, so just a guy from the ecosystem finally deciding to actually do something.
I think that's a lot of people that have been holding bet for several years. Is I think a lot of people are popping into spaces, popping on the Twitter, jumping in, see what NFTs are all about, and trying to do something with their bet because they believe in bet, they love it, and they've seen what's going on Ethereum over the last few years. They've seen Cardano since their smart contracts have kicked up, and I think a lot of people are jumping in, putting their bet to work.
Yeah, I think, oddly enough, I think VeChain's strength is also such a strong fundamental project, and it connects so well with people that come from the traditional finance world. So like people like supply chain, NFTs, efficiency, a good business to business platform. That all makes sense to the majority of the VeChain holders. That's why we gravitate towards it, and that's why we just happily sit there and watch the foundation do their stuff. But because we all have that same mindset of, I like to say, the high floor of VeChain, right? Like we're all like, there's not a lot of stress in holding it because you do see these things roll out. You're like, yeah, it'll work itself out eventually because the plan is so fundamentally solid. But because of that vibe, that trust in the foundation and their path and these partnerships, we never felt compelled to actually have to contribute because we're like, yeah, they have it, right? The plan's good, they got it. Um, Not realizing like that the foundation was also turning over tools to us. It's a public blockchain, right? They created the tools, they created the mechanisms to turn over to us to also be able to do awesome stuff. So I think, yeah, it was a little bit of an awakening to see that you don't have to be passive, and we can actually functionally contribute.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's go right into Vekings then. So you and
Yeah,
some buddies wanted, you saw the opportunity, you jumped in. I was an early supporter of Vekings, and it was huge. I mean, V-Punk's minted out I think in 8 days, and what was V-Kings about 11 hours, I want to say.
actually 5.5.
Oh, 5.5 hours. I doubled it. No worries. How'd you feel about the support that you got, and you and your whole team? How'd you guys feel about that support that you got?
I mean, obviously, it was amazing, and it was more than we could have hoped for. Anyone who was there knows that there were some hurdles with the launch. Right, we had some bumps on the mint and the reveal, and the whitelist, and then even the marketplace going live. So it was cool to see, and we try to be pretty transparent whenever we were going through that stuff. That like, hey, we're running you guys. We're trying to do this as a first time to like make this something. We're honest whenever people ask us questions or you know try to say what was causing us issues and why we're in the state that we are. But a really strong core group of people emerged from that experience. They saw, that we were putting our full effort into what we were trying to achieve, and thankfully they stuck around and actually even become kind of pillars of I would say the VNFT community. Right, you have our mod squad right now is Mike, who has his own My VeChain website. We have Fundable, who's doing his thing. He's a promoter for the space. So and then there's just numerous people who help us out and spread the word and try to enrich the entire thing. So it was cool to get the support. It was even cool to see those people that showed support step into larger roles in the entire space. So I think we all ultimately want the same thing.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, like you said, like Hippo and some of those other guys have really blown up in the space as kind of as staples of the VNFT arena. Um, and it's
Yeah,
just
you know what? I got to with you. I'm on your show right now, right? You're one of those people that stepped in, was doing your own thing, and then all of a sudden now you're running non-fungible news, right?
well, it's important to, in my opinion, to get this out there and to be helpful. That's one thing that I see. You look at Cardano, and there's rug pull after rug pull, and you can't get a hold of the creators behind a project. 90% of the time if you want to, and any of these NFTs on VeChain, if you just reach out, I mean, it's almost guaranteed that within the day you're going to get a response from somebody from the team. It's a totally different feel over here.
Definitely a good vibe. I think that's just that V-Fam feel that has cultivated a smaller community, but a tighter knit community. You see the same people project to project, whether it's good or bad. Depends on the person you're asking, but we a bit of a family. I think ultimately that may drift away a little bit as we do grow the space, and that's kind of expected. But right now, I think we're in a special place.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So that's going to kind of roll right into my next question. Um, so you're very active in the community. We talked a little bit about that. So was that something that you saw the space needed? Was that a business model with you and your team? Is that just you as a person, or is that kind of a combination of everything?
Yeah, I mean, it's filling needs, but it's also we all gravitated to our strengths. I am someone who's I'm good with people, I'm good at reading people, knowledgeable. I'm good at trying to be informative. I enjoy trying to kind of demystify some of these things. I like teaching. I like showing. I like, I like contributing in that way. Uh, I like to consider myself a coder, but frankly, stacking up against the rest of the team, I know that I don't have anything that I can contribute that is above and beyond what they could do in half the time. So I dabble and I understand the mechanics and discuss stuff with them to try to come to a better ultimate position for our team and for just the space to try to fill needs. But they're ultimately the ones that create those things for our team. And then I try to take the highly technical stuff that they do and distill it down to things that the community and everyone else can discuss. So yeah, and I am a bit obsessive, so I've spent a lot of time just in the crypto space, crypto Twitter in general, just watching things, monitoring things, and that kind of allowed me to be a good quote unquote product manager because I know a lot of things that we can compare to both on chain and off chain, and it naturally works out pretty well for our team.
Well, it is working, and people love it. I've got a lot of feedback from the people that I've brought into the crypto space that are like, man, I got a lot of information from Brett on that Twitter space, just like what was it, 2-3 days ago, whatever, maybe it was a little bit longer.
Yeah, the DeFi space. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of good info packed into an hour, and I mean, people are loving it. People are loving the DeFi. People are loving everything right now, and so it's good to have somebody that can kind of break it down into layman's terms for those of us that just don't quite understand everything that makes the blockchain function.
That's something that strikes me as interesting or peculiar for VeChain followers in general, where like there's not a lot of like the core group or even just most holders in general. They don't have a lot of just blockchain experience because they're so evangelized for VeChain that they basically just sat there and just sat on their bag and not done anything. Right? They haven't needed to participate in DeFi. They haven't needed to participate in NFT stuff. So they haven't been exposed to a lot of things on that side. So because I was following some of the greater Ethereum and just blockchain in general narratives, I was able to pull some of that stuff back. And I know, there's a few people within our community that do have a lot of experience over there, and I usually talk to them about that. Um, but it's interesting to see how many people within the VeChain space just frankly are not familiar with a lot of the common concepts of, like NFTs, DeFi, even the different types of DeFi to that, right? There's so many ways you can cut this stuff up that it's yeah, it lends to me being able to sound smart without being smart.
Well, it's definitely a lot to take in. When I started in the crypto 10, 11 months ago, it was just watching videos about different projects, and then I'd hone in on the projects that I was interested in, and I mean, to get into DeFi and DEXs and NFTs, and then looking on the blockchain, you know, actually trying to look into it and see transactions being made without um, without utilizing somebody that does it for you. For a person to try to do all this stuff myself, I've dabbled in a little bit of everything, trying to understand it, and I mean, just it's taken me every bit of time that I have to spare to even understand, like, getting into DeFi, because I'm new into the whole DeFi thing, because like I said, it started with cryptos and it went to NFTs, and now I'm in this and everything else, and so it definitely is a lot.
It's like a fire hose experience for you, huh? With all that information.
Yeah, it's crazy, but it's very intriguing. I feel. I think I just had my last straw with the bank the other day. I deposited a check a week ago, and it had a 9-day hold on it. It was a decent sized check, but there's no I told my
Who are they to say no, right?
yeah, I told my wife, I said, this is coming from a reputable bank, from a reputable source, and they're holding it for 9 days. VeChain, this would have been 9 seconds or less, and it would have been free of transaction fees, free of headaches and everything else. Anyway, that's a whole nother tangent for another day, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the core concept around decentralization, right? Like in that situation, you are the person with you meet all the qualifications to do that stuff, and it's just a bunch of bureaucracy that's keeping you from getting what you're owed in that situation. And in the future, what we're all trying to eventually work towards here with blockchain technology and DeFi and all that, everything else is just that, right? You meet the conditions. The conditions should be clearly outlined and can be defined. You meet these things, 1, 2, 3, 4, you should get whatever's on the other side of that, whether it's your money or your token or whatever. It can be coded, right? You meet those qualifications, you get the present at the other end. In this case, your money.
Yeah, exactly. How long do you think until at least we have a digital currency, that instead of the U.S. dollar, and we're eliminating banks and all that?
Yeah, so I'm not a dystopian person. I understand that one everything always ends up in the middle of what we expect, right? It's never going to be purely blockchain or purely not blockchain, right? That's both of those things are red herrings, farces in my mind. It's going to end up somewhere in the middle, which means it's going to exist, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Now the scales may tip a little bit more heavily into the blockchain side once things get going, or digital in general, just because there's so many more benefits to it. But I, I, uh, I hesitate to say that one will go away entirely. And frankly, some people just are traditionalists, right? They want that old stuff. They don't, or I should say, they don't want to change. They want the convenience of whatever establishment they have. So um, it's coming for sure. People are already discussing it with the government coins, shit like that. It may take a couple of years. I know USDC has been floated out there a few times as being the one that'll be the primary one for the states, and I know the digital one is already popping up over in China. So we're not far off. It'll be there at some point.
Yeah, and it'll be a breath of fresh air. I think
Welcome it with both arms, yes.
with with DeFi being mainstream, a paycheck from work can get deposited directly into the exchange or DEX of your choice, and you can take out the middleman. That's what we're all after, right?
Well, there's two components to that, right? There's the middleman just with his decision making power, right? The arbitrary bullshit, frankly, that they can come up with to say yes or no to whatever without actually knowing you as a person. So there's that element of it, but there's also I watched a great primer from Ernst Young. Actually, they did a big thing about blockchain and how decentralized finance is going to impact the world. And if you visualize it like um, we're putting all this energy into this block, and this block is represented by a bank today, right? And they have a chunk of that's siphoned off of that energy that's siphoned off into their own coffers, right? That they charge in fees and doing whatever. Now, with DeFi and with blockchain, if we are able to take that entity out of there and replace it with just code, right? That does a lot of decision making for us. All of that energy that is siphoned off into that third party is now either distributed to the parties on the other side that it was meant for, or back to yourself. So it that huge component of the current system that is just chewing away at people and funds and activities can now be more purely distributed to the entities involved. So it's exciting times.
It's a beautiful thing. Let's just got a few minutes left. Let's jump back over to a little bit back over to VC to Vekings. So you talked a lot about VC and doxing people and everything else on the space the other day. What's going through your mind when all these projects are barking up your tree to get on VC? I mean, did you guys plan on having this grow as fast and as big as it is?
No, well, frankly not. No, we just plan on we planned on doing Vekings, and then as we did Vekings, we said, there's an area for a marketplace. Okay, so here's a marketplace. We'll do that. And then as we did a marketplace, other teams, I think it's just that following week or maybe even same week, started approaching us like, hey, how can we get launched? How can we do whatever? And from there, like, okay, well, maybe there is an avenue for us to do that, to pull these other people in because their interest is so high. So we didn't plan for it to grow into what it is today initially. Kind of just naturally took that course as we were uh, deploying our own plans for Vekings and just getting that out there. I'm happy with the reception. There's still a lot of work to be done. Obviously, we have planned that relaunch coming up soon that will try to bring us in line with what OpenSea is doing. But yeah, we're happy for it. We're happy to enable the community, and frankly, when our objective shifted to try to enable the space and try to grow the NFT space, we realized that Vekings aren't for everyone, and it would require a diverse collection of art and NFTs and project teams to ultimately grow the space. And that's going to happen to various degrees. Not every project's going to be as successful as like Mad Bee Apes are, right? They're coming out with a really strong community, and their outreach and their growth and their reach in general is awesome. And that's great for the space, right? They're growing across chains. They're getting interest from. I think we saw Jason Derulo reach out to their team. That's awesome. So that's something that, frankly, we may not have been able to achieve with just our collection, just our marketplace, and it's the reason why we wanted to reach out to the teams and enable them. Eventually, that'll go away. We'll be able to launch throwing projects, and we'll just be able to pull them in to the market and give them a place to trade. But as it is right now, yeah, it's pretty awesome to see the reception and the level of creativity that it's sparked amongst the people in the space.
So has that all the unexpected, has that altered the roadmap along the way?
A little bit, and just in the sense that we wanted to make the marketplace itself more robust, like to do like the self upload stuff, right? Like we would never want to do a self upload for ourselves because we don't need that. We've made our collection and we could just expand that and do its thing. But um, self upload and certain features that people amongst the community enjoy, like fee delegation. That's a huge one that's unique to chain that people wouldn't see implemented, and we want to remove roadblocks to people using that marketplace, whether they're on chain or not. So yes, it's also the roadmap just in the fact that more people want more things, but our it's mostly just grown the roadmap, not so much shifted it.
So then I got to ask about the VC token. Is that a soon trademark, or do you have? Is it? I mean, is it in the works, or is it being pushed off?
Yeah, no, like so we tacked it on the end. Like we look at our roadmap, it's at the end of that for a reason, and that's because we realize that like the actual technical work to create a token is easy, right? I can flip up a contract that spins out a token tomorrow, but having the supply and demand dynamics around a token is what gives a token value, and people want something of value. So it's at the end of the roadmap because we want to make sure we have a clear picture of what we have to offer to drive demand to that, and then ultimately to the Vekings collection, because we do want all of the value to be derived from owning and being a part of the Veking community, because that's our collection. And then, if it makes sense to extend the use of that token out to other collections that we've helped launch. I know we've mentioned, Matt BH, but also, you have Humanoids, New Freaks Order, Vix, all those other teams. If we get to a point where it makes sense to extend it to them, but in a way that functionally improves the demand of the token as a whole, and then drives that value back to Vekings holders, then that makes sense. And that's something we'd want to do. So um, it's still on the roadmap. We would still like to do it. Really have it at the end of the roadmap because we want to have the full suite of options for us to drive value to it and to the Vekings holders. So yeah.
That in itself right there should be enough to draw more people in, because you guys didn't launch your NFT and launch a community token with no utility right off the get go and just kind of winging it. People can see that, oh, that's on the roadmap. It hasn't happened yet, and then hearing this from you that we don't want to just be a cash grab. We don't want to just throw it out there just to throw it out there and wing it along the way. We want to get all our ducks in a row and make sure that it makes sense, and make sure that it's going to benefit people and not just ourselves. So that's more of what you see in the VeChain community. That's really nice to see.
Yeah, the one thing that's really hard whenever you do a token like that, and you see this across all cryptos, people who you can issue a token and trying to retroactively give it utility, which doesn't always work, right? Because then you're fighting the dynamics of supply and demand that's already out there. So how do you drive, utility to something that is already out there in the hands of the world, and some people have, they've accumulated a shit ton more than anyone else, and how do you do that in a fair way? And it's ultimately the answer is you have to have those tokenomics in place before you launch, so that it launches and scales at the appropriate rate in your appropriate hands, and that's our goal.
Well, that's a good goal, and for me, it's something to look forward to. There's a lot of people that flip NFTs. I've flipped a lot. Most of my flipping has happened on Cardano. I hold a decent amount of Vekings, and I hold them because I was so mentally invested in the project, and I think, like we talked about, there's a lot of us that are like that, and so I think I can speak for the community saying that you guys are doing an awesome job with everything that you're doing, and from our perspective, everything is going very smooth, and it just is as good or better than anybody could expect it to. So
Yeah, yeah, we appreciate that, but we also do recognize that there's room for improvement there. So we're not a huge team, and we have brought on contractors to try to help us with the marketplace improvements for B2. So it's us working on that stuff, but also trying to bring in external parties to expedite that a little bit. But then also trying to help launch these other projects while we do Vekings work, and in that process, I think we probably spent less time on Vekings than we would have liked to. So we're going to double down here, try to take a more curated approach on these community collections, try to spread those out a little further so that we have more time to dedicate to Vekings and to the marketplace in general, as opposed to these community collections. Because I think it's time that we get back to what we were originally out to do.
Any update on the next burn? I slept through the last one. I woke up and I was like 4 minutes too late. I forgot to set an alarm.
Yeah, 4 minutes and it's gone.
What's that?
4 minutes is probably enough time for it to finish.
So any update on when the next one will be?
Yeah, no hard date, but we do. So Shrimp and I have been on the front end of that, trying to get the art and the lore all lined up. We have the story and we have the art being created, and the goal is early January. So here in the next few weeks, we'd like to get it out. The contracts from the previous setup were all, it tested, it worked, and no one burned anything, it didn't get anything back. So it's just a matter of us getting that art back in place so that we can do another round of it, and then maybe tweaking some of the variables so that more or less can be burned for rewards. We still have to discuss that a little bit, but yeah, I would say early January. That's our goal right now.
Awesome. Well, for anybody listening that is in before this next burn, the floor is pretty low, and I think it's a good time to go pick up some, even if just to burn them for the cause, for the community, and for the opportunity to be a part of something big and maybe get something awesome in return. I think that's about all we got for today. Do you have any last words for anybody that they might need to hear today?
No, just if you are a Viking holder, make sure you're coming in and checking announcements on occasion. We've been trying to be on top of distributing some of these community collections to Vekings holders, whether it be either whitelist or just straight up giving NFTs to Vekings holders that don't have their Vekings listed. So I put that in the announcements. Be eligible for some of these other contests and giveaways. So keep an eye out there, and you might have something to look forward to.
Awesome. Well, I do appreciate your time. I think the whole community appreciates your time, and look forward to seeing what's coming down the line. And we'll have to do this again sometime.
It's always a pleasure.
Alrighty. Thanks, Brad.
Thank you.